In this video, I'm literally going to give you guys the exact method that I've told all of my friends that I've helped build their six-figure agencies or whatever to do when it comes to niche discovery, finding the exact service they want to offer to the exact demographic they want to be helping. This method is universal, it works for everyone, and it doesn't require a ton of research. Off the top of my head, I can already think of 4 of my friends that I've told to use this and it worked really well for them. So let's get into it. When it comes to picking the demographic, aka the who you want to be selling to, you want to check one of 2 boxes, right? The first box being they have at least one unsaturated method of contact. Meaning that you can find a way to reach this person, they're not really being reached out to. So this is probably one of the worst examples of this, but like how I get my clients right now is through YouTube organic, as well as like in-person networking masterminds, or just like introductions, that kind of stuff. When I say unsaturated channels, I just mean a method to connect with them that they're not being frequently pitched on. So for example, because I'm selling to e-commerce brands, right? Cold emails is a horrible way to reach these founders. Why? Because there's like 20, 30, 40 dickhead agencies trying to pitch them at the same time through cold email, basically selling the same offers I do, right? So effectively, you want to find your demographic and ask yourself, is there a means to reach them that is typically not very saturated? So one of the means could be like cold calling, cold DMing, cold emailing. Cold DMing can fall on different platforms like Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, right? Sending direct mail, so mailing packages to their office, going in person to just like cold call them directly. It could literally be anything, right? But the point is, you need to figure out if there's a way to consistently be able to reach the demographic that you want to sell to. Majority of the time, there's going to be ways. Like for example, even if I wanted to get into e-com again from zero, I know the niche is super saturated, so I probably wouldn't do cold emails. However, I would probably just look up like the biggest brands in my country or whatever and just go camp outside their office. Like that's actually something that I would probably do if I was a complete beginner, or just like write handwritten letters, that kind of stuff, right? There's going to be ways to stand out. Don't worry too much about like the scalability aspect, because for example, you can in the future send other people to go knocking on the doors of these big corporations, or you can get like robots to write like the handwritten letters, etc. Like that part, don't worry about the scalability aspect. The next box that you have to check in order to identify a good enough demographic is if they are easy to reach, meaning that the channel that you identify that you want to try contacting them on is searchable, or like you can find the data somewhere on the internet, because obviously you're going to need a data source, right? So if you can check those boxes, the final thing, and this is slightly harder to evaluate, especially for complete beginners, but you got to ask yourself, right? Do people in this niche have the ability to pay me an amount that would justify me investing the effort to actually help them? So for example, right, people who, let's say, help the unemployed find high-paying jobs. Now that is a great niche because the pain is great, the demographic, there's not really anybody reaching out to unemployed people, etc. And you're solving a pretty big problem for them. But the issue is they don't have the power to pay you, because why? They're unemployed, right? So you got to find people who are willing and able to pay you, as well as are contactable, and have at least one channel that you can reach them on, and you can find that information readily available on the internet. Now that you've identified the demographic, right, you want to pick the service that you actually want to deliver to them. If you're a beginner, you probably think like, oh my God, like, how do I pick a service? Do I just run paid ads? Boom, right? No, that's not how you pick a service. So what a service ultimately is you performing some act, which in turn creates value for the client. So value can be simply defined as fixing a problem or solving a pain, right? For example, a lot of people want to get into email marketing, but don't necessarily know how to get into it, don't necessarily know where to start, don't really have the access to the training and the knowledge that's needed, which is why I created emailmarketer.com. You see what I mean? It's basically like I took people with a need, aka they wanted to learn email marketing, and I created the solution. I fixed the pain of not having the right access to the right information by creating emailmarketer.com, which is basically a newsletter that I run. If you guys want to learn email marketing, you can join it. First link. And this newsletter fixes the pain for people because it now helps them know exactly where to start, right? So for example, when you guys pick services, right, think about the different pains that the demographic that you've chosen has. So for example, if it's an agency owner, they might have problems around recruitment, not being able to recruit people who are high quality, high competence at a fast enough pace, right? If you're selling to agency owners, they might have a lead generation problem, right? They're not getting enough consistent appointments through their sales channels to be able to facilitate consistent growth. It might be that they have high churn rates, right? Clients aren't staying. So maybe you can step in as like an operations consultant and offer to fix the churn rate issue by implementing different metrics that you would help them measure and track in order to improve their service, right? If, let's say it's a course guru, right? The cost of acquisition on ads might be a bit too high, or maybe their closing rates are too low, in which case you can come in and offer to train their closers or give them closers or close for them, right? To improve their closing rates. Literally anything. There's going to be pains in every single demographic, and you just got to figure out what they are and see if it aligns to the current skill sets that you have, or maybe are more naturally predisposed to. So again, I've created a pretty simple system to follow when it comes to picking out the service that you want to be delivering. First thing is, you want to pick a skill that you either already know that you know is going to be valuable to the marketplace, or pick a skill that you have a natural inclination towards if you're not a very skilled person to begin with. That's okay too, by the way, because, you know, when I first started, I didn't have any degrees. I've never really worked a job. I was literally like fucking worthless, right? And I started with somewhere. I knew that I could talk. I knew that I could write. I wasn't a terrible writer because obviously I'm very good at English, even though it's not my first language. And I'm a pretty strong speaker because, you know, obviously I speak English every day, and I've always been a relatively extroverted person, and I did door-to-door sales, so I know how to have a conversation without feeling like super fucking awkward, right? And that was how I picked my start. I could write emails and I could close the deals through speaking to them, right? And that was it. So you basically want to pick skills that you know are valuable and that you have a natural inclination towards or already possess. The second thing is, ask yourself, given this set of skills, who can you actually create value for, right? So remember that whole list of potential demographics that you came up with that you could sell to? Look at that list and ask yourself, okay, with these skills, what can I do for these people that would be valuable to them? Would it help them solve any sort of pain, whether it helps them save time, make more money, make money with less headache, etc., right? But generally speaking, all of your skills should be geared towards solving either one of two things: lack of time, lack of money, right? Those are the most lucrative problems to solve for people, which is why even if you were, for example, to have like, let's say, graphic design skills, right? I don't recommend you selling graphic design skills because that's not really tied to time or money, because they would need to approach you with the idea, the product, tell you exactly what to design for and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's why I think logo design sucks ass as a service, right? Whereas if you take those graphic design skills and say, I can design highly converting emails or highly converting pre-lander funnels or advertorial funnels or whatever, right? That would be an example of a very high leverage service and a great service to create a ton of value from, right? So how to create value for those demographics with your current given set of skills? You literally just want to build a system and start selling it. Once you close your first deal, deliver on that and try your damnest, because reputation is super important in the service space, right? So you want to make sure, especially for the first 5 projects, you nail every single one. That might sound overwhelming to you, but I promise you, once you actually start doing it, it's actually nowhere near as bad as people think. Because like, I remember my first client that I took on. It was an ads client. They were doing 12 to 19K a month on their Shopify. We 4X'd them over a span of, I think, like 10 months or something, or like 8 months. We 4X'd their revenue to $88,000 a month. And that was through paid ads and emails, right? Did I know a thing or two about paid ads? Absolutely fucking not. Like, prior to signing them, I've never ran an ad in my life. Never sent an email in my life, you know, like on the marketing side, that is. So yeah, all that's to say is that's how you pick a niche. That's how you make it hyper profitable. And just to wrap this up, the biggest lie I see on YouTube that a lot of like course gurus perpetuate right now because it's like the trending thing or whatever is growth operating or like growth partners. I can tell you objectively what are the most horrible niches for beginners or people with very limited business experience to go into. That is going to be things like growth operating, growth partners with e-com brands, growth partners in general with like any business demographics is terrible. I'll tell you why. Is because in order to grow a business, you need multiple skills combined at a very high level, driving the growth of that business. You need to learn recruitment, there's a bunch of shit, right? So tell me, in what world is a beginner that's never generated 10K a month online gonna be able to build or help a big enough creator create like a 7-figure, let's say, coaching business, for example, right? As in the case with growth operating. It's nearly impossible. It's complete dog shit. And the people that you see making money with this, a lot of that is due to survivorship bias, but also a lot of the time, it wasn't their first rodeo, right? Like growth operating is a really terrible business model for you to go into, especially if you're a complete beginner. Now, another reason is because it's hugely dependent on the client. If the client doesn't produce content or just like gets burnt out or whatever, or doesn't record the course, you're basically fucked, right? So that's an example of a really horrible niche to go into. And to sum up why, it's basically, it requires a lot of skill sets. It's highly dependent on the client themselves, whether or not they get results. And it's actually highly saturated because you won't believe the amount of retards I get in my DMs every single day trying to pitch me growth operating. Like, I don't sell a course right now. But anyways, so that's it for how to pick a niche. Follow this system and you're going to be able to pick a service and sell it really profitably. I'll see you in the next one.